Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the C-Man, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the C-Man's Cinema Sit-Down. Oh, we have a new combat action movie and a new combat action director and actor and writer that I can't wait to see more from. Oh, was this movie cooking? Don't get me wrong, it's not like the greatest action movie you've ever seen in your life, but for a directorial debut, to get this, it's a sin that this was sitting on a shelf at Netflix because they were worried about what the reception might have been in India. Thank God for Jordan Peele. Thank God this didn't just go to streaming and that we got it in a movie theater. I'm psyched to talk about this one. It's one of my most anticipated movies of the year. What are we talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat. We are getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into Monkey Man. And oh, good God, did Dev Patel knock this one out the park. However, there are a few things that I kind of want to get straight right out the gate, having conversations that I've had with friends of mine that have also seen the movie and seeing what some people have said. I think there are some things that need to be set expectation-wise if you have not seen this movie, because the immediate comparisons coming out of, I believe, South by Southwest was that, oh man, here comes the Indian John Wick. And that's not what this movie is. If you are a John Wick fan because of what John Wick movies do, and that's specifically gunplay and really tight choreo, that's not what this movie is. There is really tight choreo, don't get me wrong, but there's really almost no gunplay in the movie whatsoever. It is much more, I think, in the realm of like The Raid when it comes to just really tight hand-to-hand combat action using whatever you got in your vicinity as a weapon. Those are certainly the things that Dev Patel checks the boxes on. And it honestly, watching the movie, it kind of feels like a John Wick Raid baby was made. You know, like the thing I love the most about this movie is that I think it functions very well as an original action movie, and does things that you're not going to see other action movies do. But it certainly pays homage and tribute to the things that inspired Dev Patel to make this movie during COVID. Like you can see the John Wick and the Raid and those types of combat action movies were things that I would have to imagine if you sat down with Dev Patel and were like, all right, so like name your favorite combat action movies. Like those would definitely be in there. But there's also things like Drive, where you're really relying, I think, more on a rock solid visceral performance than always having unbelievable action or choreography going on. But when it hits, and that's like, I think the tone of Drive is very much in here as well, or a movie like that, right, where this is a just straight up revenge action thriller. Like Dev Patel's character has had some things that were done wrong to him and his family, and when, you know, the thing I love that he does is the slow reveal on that stuff, because we kind of get thrown right into the movie and we're just kind of going, and then as you go, his character has moments where he struggles with things, and you kind of start to see what the motivation and the factors and what came in his past are. And when you get there, man, like there's tragic stuff going on, and it not only enhances his character, but it also does a wonderful job of highlighting, you know, the socioeconomic differences and the divides in India when it comes to class. And, you know, that's one of those things that I also really dig about this movie is while you're getting this really dope revenge thriller, you're also getting this wonderful experience of India. Like, I felt like I experienced so much of India, not because Dev is forcing it down your throat or like, you know, it's just where his character has to go and the people that he has to interact with and the things that you have to do. You just get a really legit vibe of what India is like in certain areas and its nightlife and how certain things and schemes and you know, different things function. And what's great is you get to experience it, all of it organically, you know, whether it's cultural or it's, you know, political or economical. Like all the things that Patel is talking about in the movie, a lot of times it's just imagery on screen that you're absorbing through osmosis while you watch his story, which certainly deals with some of that stuff head on. But I really love just the specifically like cultural representation of India, where I walked away and I was like, I've never been to India. I've seen some Indian films, but not a lot. And I feel like I took a lot away on that level. And then there's a lot of depth to his character, you know, and I think that's true for a lot of these types of movies, but so easily in action can you just stay surface. But that's not the type of actor Dev is, right? Dev is a phenomenal actor, and I love that he gives himself stuff to do that shows that depth in acting, whether it's his anger or his sadness or his rage or his frustration. Like, you just get all these wonderful moments that, because of what's happening to him in what he is doing, you're experiencing things through him that I just think work really, really well as a character. And I would say it's kind of like John Wick Year One, if you wanted to go that route in a comparison, where we are seeing the building of a myth. You know what I mean? The idea of Monkey Man, you're seeing how it's created. And that's one of the other things I think Patel really nails here, is that he understands, hey, this is a guy who knows how to fight. And there are elements to his fights that I've seen people criticize on the action front. And it's like, I promise you, when you're watching like that first fight or the other fights when he's in the ring as Monkey Man, what he's doing is deliberate every single time he is in the ring. And what you get is, like, I got more of a vibe of he is preparing himself for beatdowns. Like, to accomplish what he wants to accomplish, he's going to have to go through a lot of people. And there's a lot of risky things he's going to have to do. And the chances of having to throw down are probably high. And the chances of throwing down with people who are more skilled or maybe just larger than you, also high. So you got to know how to take a beating. And that's kind of some of the things that are going on with him when he's in the ring. But you can tell he's an extremely talented fighter, and he certainly is seasoned in certain elements. But there are lines that a character has to cross that they haven't. And that's where the build of the character, I think, is really, really awesome. Like, you see the hesitation and the unsureness of someone who wants and knows they have to do something, but have never had to do it before. And when confronted with it, it takes a sec. And building him up to be able to do what he does by the end of the movie feels natural, and it feels like you've seen the building of a myth. Like, there is an element where, like, Monkey Man could be the equivalent of Baba Yaga, and that's where it's like it feels like a kind of year one story. And I say year one because that gives me comic book vibes, and there are certain things that Patel does here in the camera work and the composition of the film that give you kind of comic book panel vibes. I'm not saying superhero vibes, but like, if you just read an indie comic or anything like that, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Patel said he was also influenced by things like that. And when we talk about the technical stuff going on in this movie behind the camera, it brings one of my favorite things about this movie, and that is a sense of urgency from a writer and a director who doesn't know that they're going to get a second shot. And when you hear how hard it was to make this movie, what Patel had to do to scrape together funds, like, yes, this is being released by Universal and produced by Monkey Paw and Jordan Peele, but that's because Peele found it on a shelf at Netflix, and they were kind of hesitant to release it because they weren't sure how it would play in India because of the socio-economical, political conversations that are going on. Which I think is silly because they had another movie come out a few years ago that also talks about those things just in a different way. I don't know. But regardless, like, it was sitting on a shelf, and thank God Jordan Peele found it. But the urgency from Patel, the whole movie, both acting, directing, and writing, all three, is this sense of urgency, like he might not get another shot. And for some, that could be a negative because he tries a lot of things. Like, there is some really slick camera work in here, and it's not necessarily consistent. We're getting different lenses. We're getting different types of shots. I mean, he plays with, like, really just wonderful framing, but then uses the camera in interesting ways. There's a quality to the handheld approach that most of the movie follows, where it doesn't feel like a steady cam, and it gives it, I think, a vibe where it's like, if I saw something like that out of context, I'd go, that might be Dev Patel. The other thing, though, is he plays with first person. And this is one of the things that I've seen in action that is always really cool, because if you play video games, you end up in first person a lot, and it's sweet when the camera can kind of go there, especially when action is going on. And I'm going to spoil it just a little bit, but I want you guys to be able to have it in the back of your mind to look out for this. But it's a sequence where he's coming downstairs and there's a bunch of people that he's fighting, and it swings into one of these, like, the camera becomes the first person, and you're experiencing everything from Patel there. Like, his hands are coming out from under the camera, you're seeing all this stuff, but as he goes down the stairs, he gets punched by somebody, and the dude that hits him knocks Patel out of the first person. So it's like the camera is there and then he gets hit, the camera kind of shakes and he comes out of frame, which is something you can do with a camera in a video. Like, it had this really interesting like video game quality to it, but like something that I haven't necessarily exactly seen before in film or even directly in a video game. There are just things that can give you that element of it with how you can play with the camera. But like literally, like the punch knocked him out of first person, and those were the things that I thought were just so dope, man. Like, I think the camera work here is spectacular. I think the set design is great, and like there are vibes that, again, you see the influences on something like John Wick, where the colors and the lighting and some of the cool things in the background that are going on just really make this wonderful. I mean, he plays with mirrors at one point in a really neat way, and all of it is, yes, stylish and kind of showing what you can do, but I also think every time he's making one of those decisions stylistically, it's also enhancing the moment that you're in. And I was just incredibly impressed with that. And then the choreography, like, this is not a John Wick movie in the sense that, like, when a John Wick movie starts, outside of the first movie having to establish like what the conflict was and make you buy into John, is action nonstop, those movies. And that's not what's going on here. There's a lot of character development. There's a lot of character work. There's a good supporting cast around Patel that he builds pretty well. And it's not like there's a lot more cerebral things going on in this movie. But when we get to the action, I friggin' thought it was phenomenal stuff, especially because Dev's never, like, this is the first time he's directing and you're seeing this level of action. Like I said, it's not quite in the same place as something like what Chad Stahelski is doing with the John Wick movies, or even what you know David Leitch has done with Atomic Blonde and Bullet Train. Like, it's not quite there. Like, this is definitely a first outing. However, much like Stahelski's first outing, who granted he had been working with Leitch for a while, and it came from the stunt choreography world, which we don't know with Dev, but it did have that, like, wow, like, you can tell there's room for improvement here, but what we're getting is so impressive, and the movie is just so ambitious in general. And the commitment from Dev to not just what he does character wise, but to what he does with the action in this movie, like, I didn't know this kid had it in him. I'm not shocked, because I constantly am saying we need more Dev Patel. He's one of the most talented people in Hollywood. Every time he steps out, his movies hit. And I love that he, like I said, gives himself stuff from performance, but then, like, seeing this rage, like him in the ring, taking beatings. And then when you get to, like, the last 30 minutes of this movie, that finale run that he goes on, gauntlet, and he knows when to set the camera back. He knows when to come in. There's some really good work cut-wise. Like, one of the things that always gets me with action movies is when people don't want to sit back and just kind of let you sit wide and watch all of this amazing work. You get, like, all this cutting around because it seems like you're almost cutting around bad choreography, and that's not the case here. There are definitely times where he is cutting in fights, but it is always enhancing what you're getting. And then when you sit back, you just, like, are in awe of, I didn't know Dev Patel could do this stuff. And he went hard, man. I mean, broke bones. I think he broke his foot and his hand, like, during filming. Like, it's just, all of that stuff was so good, and it's got one of the best montage without being a montage type moments. Like, his training sequence functions in montages when you're seeing what's going on outside of his training, like the things, the people that he's interacting with, how he's, doing certain things in prep with this. There's a moment in the movie where he kind of needs to pause, reset, and he ends up at this temple with a lot of transgender Indian people, which I thought was a really interesting ad, and another element of the Indian cultural stuff that he kind of bakes in here, like, to give that kind of representation to this community, and how he utilizes them is so freaking cool, man. And, like, he gives them such dope moments. But while at this temple, like, you get this montage of different things happening on with that community, and kind of the building of his character back up after, what happens. And then the training, I think, is all one. It's all from one training session, but it makes it feel like a lot of time has passed, and these are the training things he has been doing, and how he syncs it up with this. There's a dude who plays like this bongo type drum, but it's not a bongo. Like, it's got these crazy sounds, and it's got to be from India directly. But how he syncs that up with what's going on, and having the two function in the actual same space at the same time, plays in just such a cool way, where like you get to the end of that sequence and you're like, all right, I'm ready to go. And that's where the pacing and the building and everything else that he's doing, just, he nails all of that stuff. And while this movie is not perfect, and there might be moments for people where it's like, well, this didn't work or that didn't work, for a directorial writing debut, I mean, this movie is just ambitious as anything, and I appreciate that so much. And I also appreciate how brutal this movie is. I didn't mention that when we were talking about the action, but man, when Monkey Man is in the ring, you feel every blow that he takes, and when he's functioning out in the world, like, just the way he takes some people out, there are moments where you're just like, oh, damn. You know what I mean? And I really think the brutality fits when you're talking about all the stuff that Dev is building on the character and story front. Like, when you get to those moments, you want them to be brutal, and they match in a way that I think just works perfectly in the movie. And again, like, you can't get away from just what the camera work is. And I didn't shout out directly Sharone Meir, who is our cinematographer here, and what Meir is doing, man, like, his and Dev's vision is so clear. And while there's a lot of different elements and different things going on with the camera, all of it works. And each time you see a switch or Meir does something differently, like, it just elevates what's on screen, as does the score that comes from Jed Kurzel. This score is unique. It feels authentic to where we are, and plays perfectly with like the Indian culture, with moments that need to either suck you into the story or just pick up the pace and get you to the edge of your seat in the action. And it also has some nice needle drops in there where you play with things that come from both American and Indian cultures, like on the regular music front, and things I'm sure Dev probably was influenced by as he was growing up. So I love the way that they play with the music, and just, again, how that elevates and lifts the movie. And then I just love that Dev gave himself a wonderful supporting cast around him to lift him up throughout the course of the entire movie. And you kind of can build it, you know, if you want to say, with this wonderful hierarchy on the antagonist side. Like, these are villains that are easy to either identify or like really, really be against, and riding for Dev as you go through it. And it starts at the top with Makran Deshpande, who plays Baba Shakti, who's this kind of religious figure that has a lot of political influence. And as we near Diwali, I believe, is the celebration that's happening in India that you're counting down to throughout the course of the movie, it's also coinciding with this political vote. And, you know, Baba Shakti has a lot of influence, and you know, he's got to be up to some shady stuff. And being at the top, I think, is one of these things where you see him constantly in the background, and you can understand the kind of danger and influence that this guy has. So getting all the way to there, especially because he's at the top at the time that the conflict arises that kind of is driving Dev throughout the course of the movie. He functions perfectly as that type of figurehead. And then his number two is someone in the police force, Captain Rana, played by Sikander Kerr. And I really dug Kerr, man. Like, he is physically bigger than Dev. So again, as the character is building, you're kind of leveling up to someone who is a legitimate threat, where there are real stakes, and has the most direct ties to what is driving Dev. So when you get there, again, it's like that brutality element is so satisfying, and the fight seems really earned for Dev's character. And I just thought Kerr played that type of villain that you absolutely hate so much, but you could see why he has influence the way that he does. And again, is one of those things that just builds perfectly. And then you drop from Rana to Queenie, who's kind of like your street level person, right? Like, she's got a restaurant, and I think a hotel, might just be a restaurant, but obviously is doing a lot of things in the street, moving different things around. And she's played by Ashwini Kalsekar, who again, I think embodies that role really, really well, where you don't get a ton of her, but her presence anytime you're on the ground is definitely there. And her influence and just the way she interacts with people is exactly what you would think for that type of a character. And then like one of her number twos, so to speak, is this guy, Alfonso, who, you know, works in the restaurant and then does a lot of that stuff out in the streets, played by Pita Bosch, who is phenomenal. Because the character Alfonso in and of itself is really interesting because he's kind of in the middle of Monkey Man and Queenie to a degree. Like, he obviously works for Queenie, but he develops a really interesting relationship with Dev throughout the course of the film, where there's this connection between the two of them that's a lot of fun. And Pete Bosch brings a lot of fun. His humor and some of the jokes and things he does when he's poking fun at Dev as he kind of moves his way up at the restaurant, it is a lot of fun seeing him kind of be his boss. And then, like I said, how they kind of both need each other, I think is really neat. And Pete Bosch like crushes all of that stuff. And then Sharone Copley, every time this dude pops up in anything, I'm here for it. He plays Tiger. He's kind of the guy who runs these underground fights that Dev is in frequently throughout the movie, where he's got the monkey mask on and he kind of creates all of the different fighters are different animals. So it's like these animal battles. It's freaking great. And he is perfect for that role. And watching his reactions to certain things that go on in the ring, whether it's Dev in there or it's two other guys fighting, like, he's just so good. And then you have Vipin Sharma, who plays the head of that temple, and just a wonderful, sweet genuineness to his performance that gives Dev's character something that I think he needs, in the sense of like comfort and reassurance and like building back up his character when he needs it the most. And then everybody else that's at the temple, whether it's the dude who's playing those sweet drums or the other members that are in that community, whether you're seeing things that are just happening there or how they end up playing into things toward the end of the movie. I just really loved the visuals behind what was going on there and how Dev used those characters throughout. And yeah, I mean, this is just one of those movies where everybody who shows up comes to play. And in a movie where you know there's that urgency and it's a hard one to make, having that support around you, I think you can definitely feel that thriving through the movie for Dev. And yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not going to say that this is a movie for everyone, but this is 100% a movie for me. Me and my buddy Nico went and saw it. I saw it for the second time with him, and he walked out. He was like, bro, like, it's not John Wick, but it's not supposed to be John Wick. And that's fine, but it is fire. And I was like, you right, man. Like, I'm 100% with you. Like, I like that it's not John Wick, but you can feel that influence and how that would inspire Dev, as well as, like I said, some of the other films, like, you know, The Raid or Drive. Like, there are just those types of vibes in there that create this really awesome flick for me. So let's get the Sea Maniacs up. You know, like I said, I think Dev is just... this is a home run for him. I mean, directorial debut with an ambitious film that goes to an area and genre that we haven't seen him play in, and he nails everything in the action realm when it comes to the directing and the choreography and his performance. And to carry all of that and just see the type of passion and urgency that he puts into this film, you appreciate it. And whether you love everything or not, it's so wonderful to see this as a first outing, and you can't wait to see what he does next. The same, of course, also going for his cinematographer, Sharone Meir, and his his composer, Jed Kurzel. The score and the cinematography in this movie certainly make it feel as ambitious and as urgent as it is, and just both elevate everything in the film, as does the entire supporting cast. And yeah, I mean, this is just one of those breakout type moments, and I can't wait to see what Dev does next. I hope he does something with Jordan Peele, because I think it'd be cool to actually see him produce a movie and not just be the one who buys it and gets it distributed through Universal and, you know, his production company Monkey Paw. I think that'd be a cool collab. But whether it's back in the action realm, back with more stuff for Monkey Man, or just doing something completely different, I can't wait to see what Dev does next. But as far as Monkey Man goes, this is one of my favorite films of the year right now, and I definitely see it being right in that top 10 range when we get to the end of the year. I'm going 4.5 out of 5 Sea Maniacs. Like I said, you might not think it's a perfect film, and I could understand some of the issues people have with the movie in some of the conversations that I've had with people, but for me, everything here hit, and there's still room for improvement, so it's not quite there. And like I said, it's not at that John Wick level yet, but the ceiling for Dev Patel, he could be a major player in the action realm if he wants to be. And I think just with his pedigree as an actor, could be a really big time player just in film in general. I can't wait to see what's next. But 4.5 out of 5 for Monkey Man. What a phenomenal debut. That's 2 movies in the last week that I've seen, both this and The First Omen, where you get directorial debuts that just make you sit back and go, I can't wait to see more. And that's the thing I'm loving right now about the film industry and about 2024 and the last few years, really. Like, there's a lot of young up and coming actors and directors and writers, cinematographers, composers. That's just exciting to see what they do next. And I love that Dev's thrown his name into that mix. So like I said, 4.5 out of 5 C Maniacs for me. I'm going to finally shut up, flip it over to you. I want to know what you're thinking about Monkey Man. Have you gone out to see the movie? Did it hit your expectations? I think that's been probably the biggest thing I could say is an issue, is the trailers and the first words coming out painted a picture for something that's not exactly what it is. It's not the Indian John Wick. It's influenced by John Wick, but it's influenced by combat films in general. And the choreography and the action is tight, but there's a lot more there. So did that throw you off? Did you enjoy that more than just an all-out action movie? Did you think when the action was on screen, it was fantastic? What did you think of Dev's performance? Did you know he had that kind of action performance in him? What do you think of the directing, the writing, the other performances? If you didn't see the movie, or where is it on your anticipation list? Like I said, this is one of the top ones for me. And I just want to know if you're going to see it, where it is, good, bad, indifferent on Monkey Man. Put it down below in the comment section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the C-Man anytime. We're talking movies, TV, trailer, reactions. I've seen Civil War and I've seen the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. You want to be here to see those reviews. We got a Maxine trailer to look at. We got a Joker 2 trailer coming out today. You want to be here for that stuff. You just dig the vibe. You want to show a little love and support. Come join C-Maniac Nation. Super easy. Jump over there. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, for the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down. I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace. Hey, what's up, C-Maniac Nation? Winter Ken here, where we grow out our roots and our beard, letting you know that you can see some new C-Man videos right up here and right down here. And if you want all those videos and show that man a little love and support, come join C-Maniac Nation right over there, and the C-Man will catch you on the next one.